Is Mass Effect Andromeda worth playing in 2023? Hi, my name is Katie, and I didn't start playing video games until I was an adult, and I most recently have gone through the entire Mass Effect trilogy for the first time, and then I went ahead and played Mass Effect Andromeda for the very first time in order to round out my entire Mass Effect experience. I played through the game with 0 mods, and I am here to tell you if I think that this is a game that is still worth your time in 2023. So if you're excited about it, if you are looking forward to hearing all of the good things and all of the bad things about Mass Effect Andromeda, go ahead and click the like button down here. And if you'd like to see more content from me, you can go ahead and click subscribe, hit that notification bell so that way you always know whenever I upload a video. A few disclaimers before I jump into my full pros and cons list. Disclaimer 1, I went into this game with a very open mind. Basically, every single person that I said I was going to play this game to had said, oh, it was really bad, or I heard it was very bad. And I heard that and I went, you know what? I have liked so many games that people have said like, oh, that was a really bad game. I was like, you know what? I'm going to hope to enjoy this. I'm going to go in not expecting to hate it. And I'm just going to see what the game gives me. So despite having heard that it was a bad game, I really made mental notes to myself to be like, go into this game and get excited for the possibilities. Last disclaimer is these are simply my opinions. They're just opinions. They are not facts. And if you have opposing ones, I love that for you. Tell me why in the comments. I would absolutely love to hear all of your takes and hear all of the different points that you might have. And especially if you had a different experience, please tell me about it. I love to hear it. And this is an open discussion. We're going to go through all of the things that I didn't like about Mass Effect Andromeda. And then we're also going to go through all of the things that I did like. And then we will be able to kind of decide, and I'll be able to give you my thoughts on whether or not I would really recommend playing this game in 2023 and if I think it's worth your time. So let's go ahead and start off with the things that I didn't like. What did I not like about Mass Effect Andromeda? The planets. Okay, so every single planet I felt was kind of the same, just with a different weather scheme. And I know that environments are really tough to do. I know they take a really, really, really long time. And it's not like I think that the Mass Effect trilogy did it any better, although I want to be clear that this is not like a let's compare Mass Effect Andromeda to the entire Mass Effect trilogy. This is not that video, but I know that, you know, in the Mass Effect trilogy, I don't think they probably did the best job in the world of making every single planet feel super different and super lived in and all of that, but it felt really, really, really apparent in Mass Effect Andromeda. It was every single planet had literally the same setup. It was just like a different skin of weather. And sure, there was like the one main area that maybe had like a different interior layout, but it all felt the same. And all of the places you would drive around, like it had the same kind of pop-up locations, and you know, it would have like the same Kep bases, and they even had the same little like creepy crawler guys, whoever, like whatever those were, the things that kind of looked like a mixture between like a spider and a snail, was literally the same thing, just in different colors on every single planet, which when you end up spending so much time as Mass Effect Andromeda does, and I'll get into this in a little bit later, but when you spend that much time on a planet grinding out the side missions and having to put so many hours into grinding through in order to make outposts, in order to create outposts, and that's kind of the point of the game, like you kind of want each area to feel significantly different, or at least bring something new to the table. At least that was really what I was looking for, and it made it honestly like pretty boring for it to just be the same thing over and over again. This is a complaint that absolutely every single person, I've never heard somebody say that they liked this part of Mass Effect Andromeda. Everybody that I've talked to has agreed with me on this point, but the loading screens the loading screens were so long. And I will say, somebody had given me a tip. I was thinking about downloading mods for Mass Effect Andromeda, and I just never got around to it. I was thinking about it, and somebody said, oh, you could download a mod for the loading screen. And I was like, why would I need that? That feels like, you know, I was kind of more so looking for like aesthetic, like appearance mods. And I just kind of like breezed past it. Again, I didn't even really get to download the mods, but the loading screens genuinely took so much time away from gameplay. Like, I think I spent a solid number of hours, if we added it all up, just spent on loading screens. And I went ahead and looked up when Mass Effect Andromeda came out, because I was like, surely, like, I don't think there were limitations on the technology. Like, you know, I don't know, maybe there were limitations on the technology as to like what was possible, despite, you know, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 have already come out before this. Again, not comparing the two, just saying that like the technology clearly was there. And Mass Effect Andromeda, for a game that came out in 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, only 6 years ago, I think to have loading screens that are that long, it feels like something went wrong there. And I don't really know what it is, but it really feels like there was a goof there, because that is crazy. And I really, really dreaded having to leave or travel in between planets. I dreaded doing it because I knew that I was just gonna be stuck in these like long loading screens, and it just became not fun. Those were like the two little like random, you know, quality of life things that I didn't like about it. Now to get into some meatier things that I didn't like about the game. First of all, the flirting. The flirting dialogue, honestly, it just felt really stilted. I get that Ryder is supposed to be super awkward, but it feels like we kind of never see her open up to anybody that she's interested in, despite having all of these flirt options. So I ended up picking Jal as my main romance option. So I don't know if maybe the flirting, like the more serious you get, if those dialogue options feel less stilted depending on like who you lock in your romance with. But for me, I had picked Jal because he was beautiful, is beautiful and sexy, and I was like, yes, alien romance, let's go. It's less about the flirting at the beginning, because I can totally see and understand that there's like awkward flirting that happens at the beginning when you're interested in anybody, right? And if we're establishing that Ryder is a super awkward person, like in the beginning, that kind of makes sense, but she never develops or like grows into the relationship. It just kind of feels like really, really, really aggressively awkward flirting. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're at the scene with Jal and he's like, oh, I'm completely in love with you. And for me, it really felt flat, which is such a bummer because I love Jal so much. And I thought that he was such a compelling character. And again, he was very sexy. We love to see it. But I just kind of felt like I didn't see their relationship develop at all. It just kind of felt like two people who, honest to God, did not have any chemistry together. And I don't think Ryder had chemistry with anybody, to be fair. Just people that didn't have chemistry together, all of a sudden, like being told that they have to like act out a scene as if they're in love. And I don't know if that's a script thing or, you know, maybe that was like a deliberate voice acting choice. I don't know. But by the time that the final like love confession kind of comes in, I was just like, I don't really buy it. I don't really believe it. So that was a really big bummer for me because obviously I love the romance. I loved the romance element in the Mass Effect trilogy. I love a good RPG where you are able to romance people. And I love to be able to see that relationship progression throughout the game. And I really just, there was no development that I saw. The one romance that I did see that I think that there was a lot more chemistry in actually was the PB route. So I was like flirting with PB because I kind of wanted to flirt with everybody just to see what happened. And then when I realized it was going to like take me, it was going to add on so many more hours to the game, I was like, abandon ship, we're locking in romance with Jal. But I do think that like PB and Ryder actually had a pretty good dynamic, and I feel like I can't figure out why it was better with PB than with Jal, but there was something that was a little bit different there. And honestly, maybe if I had seen the PB romance the whole way through, maybe it wouldn't have also landed at those later stages. But at the beginning stages and kind of at the middle, like, you know, you're at PB's apartment with her ex shows up, like they are really having like some developments. And I did feel like I was bought into that a little bit, but you know, Jal was sexier, so he won out in the end. Next big thing that I didn't really love was, as much as I did enjoy the Ket as a antagonist, villain, I think the Ket are more of an antagonist than a villain, to be honest. But as much as I did really like so many aspects of what was happening within the Ket storyline, we really don't know why the Ket are bent on destroying everything. Like by the end of the game, we still don't know that information. As somebody who I was honestly interested in that storyline, I wanted to see more of it progress. I wanted them to give us more information and they kind of just gave us zero information about the bigger story. for example, the experimentation with the Angara was like a really key point in saying like, okay, we've got something to hold on to. Like we've got something to dig deeper. We're also, we're already connected with the Angara, and there's this connection with like a crewmate on our ship. He can be like exploring like what it means to be Angaran versus like, do the Angara come from the Ket? Do the Ket turn, like all the experimentation that's happening? But then towards the end of the game, we also find out that the Ket are experimenting with Krogan as well. And to me, then the wheels are turning and I'm like, okay, so this has moved on from something that's just, as opposed to it just being kind of about the Ket and the Angara and the Ket being, a different version of the Angara. Okay, well, the Ket are also now trying to experiment on and indoctrinate, for lack of a better term, the Krogan as well. And why are they doing that? What's the connection there? Like what is the ultimate end goal for the Ket? And I understand that they were trying to set it up for a sequel. I understand that they were like, oh, it's gonna be like the Mass Effect trilogy. We're gonna get a bunch of legs out of this. But I am a huge believer that you can have a sequel story, but the first installment, you can still like open a storyline and complete a storyline for the most part while leaving a few things open to thread through to the sequel if you are successful enough to get the sequel. So I think that I don't want to make assumptions and say, oh, like this team just got lazy, because I don't believe that, like, especially when it's your full-time job, like you're going to put this out to the world, you're going to share it with the world. Like you don't just get lazy and are like, oh, whatever, we're just not going to do it. I feel like maybe they just had too much faith that it was going to get a sequel, it was going to get the green light for a sequel, that they were like, oh, we can deliberately leave this massive point open and people are going to be so invested in this that they're going to want to know. And I mean, I do want to know what the Ket's MO is, but I'll give some caveats later. So that was a huge con for me, was that we end the game having slightly more information than when we started, but honestly, like really not that much. Like if you look at all the information we get at the beginning of the game, compare it to the end of the game, it's not that much more. It's really not that much more. It's like a few extra points about the Angara and the experimentation, and that is it. And I think that is a huge miss in storytelling. The final point in my list of cons on my things that I didn't like about Mass Effect Andromeda is Ryder herself, or himself if you decided to play as male Ryder. I played as female Ryder. Ryder did not have any character development, in my opinion. Ryder starts the game the way that we meet her and ends the game almost exactly the same. I think you can certainly argue that she's, learned a lot about leadership, and she's gained a lot of confidence, like she's gained more leadership qualities. I think that you can certainly argue that, but I think that you would be arguing that she built those internally, because her crew still treats her mostly the same. Even towards the very end of the game, Cora asks her and says something along the lines of like, do you mean that we're defying a direct order? And to me, I'm like, if this, especially Cora, who's been established as somebody who's like, I'm going to follow whatever the Pathfinder says. That's my duty. That's my job. I have a responsibility to my duty and my job. And that is the thing that comes first and foremost. You're having Cora then question Ryder's statement of order of, we are going to do this thing. And Cora's like, oh, sorry, but like, are we actually doing that? And I think that you probably could have had somebody else say that line and maybe I wouldn't be as bothered by it. But to me, that's like, okay, so now we're literally like 2 missions away from ending this game. And that tells me that you still don't have faith in Ryder's leadership abilities after this entire game, which then translates to Ryder hasn't had that much character development, in my opinion. Again, minus the love interest, which I do think that like, Jal provides her with a lot of like, you're going to be great, you're going to do great. There's like a scene close to the end where he says that. But other than that, it kind of still feels like everybody is tiptoeing around the new Pathfinder, which again, super valid. That's a valid choice. However, I was under the impression that this game was about Ryder coming into her own as a Pathfinder, being thrust into this position, not of choice, and having to really figure out like, how do I lead a team? How do I lead a team in a place I've never been before, when literally everything is going wrong, everything's going backwards. And that's a really compelling story. That's a really compelling arc to see somebody go through. But I just feel like Ryder's dialogue is very flat. It's very one note throughout the whole thing. She is still just as unsure and awkward at the end of Mass Effect Andromeda as she is at the beginning. And I think that there's a better way to capture, like, if you're a little bit awkward, there's a way to capture that, not in the way that they ended up doing it. So that was a really, really huge miss for me. And especially, again, with such a great setup and such a great premise of, like, you're going to have to really figure out how to do this. You're going to have to gain the trust of people. You know, you're going to have to figure out all your interpersonal relationships. You're going to have to handle meeting an entirely new alien species. And how do we interact with them, and like making sure that we're peaceful and hospitable and establishing outposts and like combing these worlds, and also dealing with people that are trying to murder us. Like, there's so much that I just don't think that, I think that Ryder would be a changed person by the end of it. I think that Ryder would have so much more confidence and would just be changed in many ways. And she really felt the exact same at the end of the game, which I was really bummed about. I really wasn't a fan. She's really presented as a kid, and I don't mind that. I don't mind like the premise of that, but I almost wish that they gave her like a really robust backstory, or at least a solid background. Like, it doesn't even have to be that robust, but at least somewhat of a solid background, which I feel like they didn't give us. I could not even tell you. I can't even remember the information that they gave to us about her at the beginning. I couldn't tell you what they said. If they had given her like a really solid background, I feel like that could have like anchored her throughout being a Pathfinder. They could have anchored me as the player and being like, okay, this is where she comes from. This is the experience. And I am absolutely not going to sit here and compare Commander Shepard and Ryder, because those are two extremely different characters, extremely different circumstances, totally different games. We're not doing that. What I will say is that despite the fact that they let you kind of choose like a background for Shepard, so you do get some say in it, they make it kind of structured enough so that way you have a footing, but you know, they're not necessarily giving you every detail. They're letting your imagination fill in the blanks. So it's like, okay, you know, like my Commander Shepard, okay, was the only survivor of, you know, XYZ attack. Okay, great. That to me then gives me a baseline and says like, okay, based on that experience, my Shepard might do XYZ. Whereas Ryder, I didn't have anything to ground in. So I was just kind of like, well, I don't know what Ryder would do. I'm just going to do what I would do, but it's not necessarily what Ryder would do. And so I think there was a disconnect between like me as the player making choices that I just wanted to make versus Ryder as a character. So I almost feel like would have been better to just be a totally random original character as opposed to Ryder. There are pros and cons to that. I've talked through all of the things that I didn't like about it. What did I like about Mass Effect Andromeda? There are actually things that I liked about Mass Effect Andromeda and things that I really enjoyed. So let's go through them. First, obviously, the Angara. I loved them. I thought they were such a breath of fresh air. They were so interesting. I really, really, really enjoyed getting to know more about them. And although I was initially a little bit bummed that basically we were just using the same races that we had seen in the Mass Effect trilogy. And then I got really excited when they finally did introduce a totally brand new alien race. I was really into it. And I loved like learning a little bits and pieces about their culture and their families and just really getting to know all the Angara. I loved it. Like I said earlier, I honestly was really super interested in the Ket storyline. I was very curious about it. And I really did enjoy it until they didn't resolve it. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely on board with this. Is it like the greatest plotline I've ever seen? No, but it's definitely interesting and it definitely makes my ears perk up and like me have more motivation to get through the main quest, because I'm like, ooh, I want to know. I want to know, like, I want to go beat these guys, or like I want to know more information about what they're doing. I want to like figure out what their big scheme is, you know, all of that. So I did quite enjoy that until they didn't resolve it. I really, really loved the final fight where you get to utilize your twin. I really thought that they were gonna just totally forget about the twin, or that the twin was just gonna be like asleep in cryo the entire game and they were not gonna utilize it, and that like maybe I didn't actually realize that the ending was setting up a sequel that never happened. But what I thought was that like, oh, if they do end up making a sequel, they'll somehow make it so that way you play as the twin and then you wake up out of cryo, something like that, you know? But anyways, regardless. So I thought that they had kind of just like, we're not going to ever mention this twin again. But when they have him wake up, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I actually really loved the dynamic between the twins. I thought that they really got that. They did that well. I liked the banter between them. I liked the dialogue. I could tell that there was like a real bond there, and that was really nice to see. And then I like how in the final fight, you are really like well and truly, you are dependent on teamwork. You are dependent on your twin telling you like where the thing is. It's literally been a few weeks and I've already forgotten everything about this final fight scene, except for the fact that the twin is there. That you have to do teamwork. But I really, really love that dynamic. And I thought that they pulled it off really well. I thought that they showed the strength of the relationship there. And I don't know, I was like really bought into the relationship between these two twins. I was really bought into it. And I feel like, I was like, where was this writing the rest of the game? So I really liked it. I really, really loved their utilization of the twin at the end of the game. Drac was absolutely by far my favorite crew member. I really loved Drac, and I didn't realize how much I loved Drac until when I was doing his loyalty mission, and I was like genuinely tearing up. And all of a sudden I was like, what? Why do I suddenly care so much about Drac? Why do I suddenly have so many feelings? But I just really loved him. I don't have much to say about it other than he was fantastic. I loved him. Which brings me into my last thing that I liked about Mass Effect Andromeda, which was I did like the crew overall. I wish that they had a little bit more relationship building with each other, but I totally understand that like it's one game. They didn't really have time for that, but I genuinely enjoyed all of the crew members. You know, Liam is Liam, but like I genuinely enjoyed everybody. I thought that they brought really unique perspectives. I thought that they were all different and had different things about them that I was like, ooh, I like that, or like, ooh, I want to know more about that. They all had very distinct personalities, and I really thoroughly enjoyed that. So after the things that I liked, after the things that I disliked, would I recommend playing Mass Effect Andromeda in 2023? No, I would not. And it really pains me to say that because I really wanted to like it. I wanted to be in the percentage of people that love the game, because I know that y'all are out there. I know that there are people that deeply love this game, that had a great time with it, but I just didn't. And it made me really sad because I wanted to love it so badly, or I wanted to at least enjoy it for what it was. But there were just simply way too many things about it that I really didn't like. If you really love grinding, like if you genuinely enjoy games that are super grindy, and you find that to be like soothing, or that's like, you know, that's your wheelhouse. If you're prepared for an unresolved story, and if you were to like get it on sale for like $10, then yes, I would say go for it. Play the game. If you enjoy grinding, you're prepared for the story to be completely unresolved, and it's under $10, then yes, I would say absolutely go off, enjoy it, like play through the game, you know, like, that sounds really harsh, but it just, that genuinely is my opinion. Like, I don't think I would recommend playing it if all three of those things were not fulfilled in some way. If you do end up playing it, I would 1,000,000,000,000,000% suggest modding it for the loading screens alone. Like, honestly, I didn't have any other issues with like with the graphics or anything. Like, I know that people kind of, you know, meme on the graphics or whatever, and that the faces, they're not that great, and the faces aren't that great, but like to me, it's totally tolerable. But yeah, if you do play it, get the mod that decreases the loading screen time, because it is a huge quality of life improvement. And honestly, like, there's not really a world in which I see myself replaying this game, but if for whatever reason I had to, that would be the only way that I would do it. I think I probably could have shaved like a total of 2 or 3 hours off of my entire gameplay if I modded the loading screen. So unfortunately, no, I would not recommend playing this game. I would recommend watching a little bit of it. If you're still interested in it, definitely like watch a little bit of gameplay. And the gameplay is very smooth. Like, the combat is really smooth. I honestly like didn't have many issues with that. The powers are really easy to use. Watch some walkthroughs maybe on YouTube, or watch some just like gameplay clips, maybe like no commentary if you're just like looking to see how the game runs. Watch a little bit of it, and if it feels like your jam, then absolutely go for it. But I think for me, to have an unresolved story, to have a character with zero development from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, to a million years loading screens, to really stilted dialogue, like, and to have everything optional just be so incredibly grindy, like, for me, that doesn't really make for an enjoyable experience. So that's why I wouldn't recommend it. But again, if those are all things that you're totally fine with, then that is amazing for you. Let me know your thoughts. What did you think about Mass Effect Andromeda? What were your cons? What were your pros? If you've played through it before, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more content from me in the future, make sure you subscribe, hit the subscribe button. And otherwise, I will see you next week. Bye.